there we go.
Doesn't matter, maybe when somebody does something, I want to go home and sleep it off.
It was okay. I was expecting them to go the other direction, but it worked out just fine, so
Well, I'm glad
it was good.
you enjoyed the movie the other night.
It was good, yeah, it was fun to
What'd you
watch.
guys see?
We saw Coco up
Oh, yeah?
at the park in College Park.
We had a new summer movie at Heather Park.
It's always fun.
And the park was packed. Great.
It's always fun.
We're going.
We're live, okay.
Oops, wait a minute. I got to raise this thing up.
She already went green.
Oh, we're already on? Oh, I apologize. All right, calling to order the City of Seal Beach Planning Commission meeting for Monday, August 20th, 2018. If we could do the Pledge of Allegiance, Mary Ann, would you mind leading us? Thank you.
Please stand. I pledge allegiance.
Of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mary Ann. Let's see, Ms. Roberts, could we do the roll call, please?
Yes, Chair Thomas,
Here.
Vice Chair Klinger,
Here.
Commissioner Gerges,
Here?
Commissioner Campbell,
Here.
Commissioner Aguilar is absent.
All right, thank you, Robin. Okay, before we do the approval of the agenda, I think Director Landavazo has something she's going to share with us, so if we could all listen for a second. Thank you.
Yes, so for the record, I just wanted to point out that the agenda that was placed in the commissioners' packets that was delivered to them had the wrong information for item number 1. The agenda that was posted on the website and posted for the public was correct and had the correct information. So we provided the corrected agenda for the commissioners tonight. Additionally, I believe the staff report identified the address 210 and 213 for item number 1, and the address is actually 210 and 212 13th Street. So we wanted to correct that item as well.
Okay, so item 1, just so I know, is minor use permit 18-8, and it is at 210-212 13th Street?
Correct.
Okay, not 12th Street, 13th Street. Okay, and are there, just so I know, is there a staff report and an ordinance that we did not receive? Or did you give that to me, or?
Your packet should have a staff report and a resolution that was provided under the tab for item 1.
Oh, so you're saying the address is wrong, but all the stuff behind it is right?
Correct. The only thing that is incorrect on the title page of the staff report is the secondary
Okay.
address.
All right, okay.
So 210 and 212 as opposed to 210 and 213.
Okay, and the one that was sent to us said 301 8th Street?
The agenda, correct.
Yeah,
That was the
that's
incorrect
wrong.
agenda.
That's wrong. It is this one. But you're saying that the staff report that I read that shows the house across the street from, is this the one that's the house across the street from Mary Wilson Library?
On,
Item 2.
that's item 2.
Okay,
That would
that's
be item 2.
Okay, hold on. Sorry, I'm going to catch up with you soon. Okay, so it replaces this item 1, which is, let me make sure I have the correct. It's going to be 210-212 13th Street.
Correct.
Okay. All right, very good. Are we okay with that? Does everyone kind of get what's going on? Okay, so with that said, with the agenda that was posted and the agenda that was put online, do we have a motion to approve that agenda?
I move we approve the agenda
All right.
with the corrections.
And I second. So we can go ahead and vote. We have four yays, so we will move forward with this agenda. Thank you, everybody. Okay, thank you. Now, on to oral communications. At this time, members of the public may address the Planning Commission regarding any items within the subject matter jurisdiction of the Commission. Pursuant to the Brown Act, the Commission cannot discuss or take action on any items not on the agenda unless authorized by law. Those members of the public wishing to speak are asked to come forward to the microphone, state your name for the record, and all speakers will be limited to a period of 5 minutes. So I'm opening the floor for any oral communications. Would anyone like to come forward and say anything? All right, seeing no one, open communications period is closed. Okay, consent calendar, we have nothing. So confirm that. Scheduled matters, there's nothing there. We're on to new business. So this is item 1, minor use permit 18-8, 210-212.
Mr. Chair, if I may, before we begin the item, I believe Commissioner Gerges is going to be recusing himself because it is within a proximity of his home.
Very good. Thank
So
you,
if we can-
Director Landavazo.
If we can just give him time.
Should I leave? Ah, thank you.
All right, Victor, we'll come get you for the next item.
I was good to go. I took a bath and everything today. What can I say?
I'll wait for Robin to get back. All right, thank you, Robin. Okay, Director Landavazo, do we have a staff report on this item?
Yes, Steve Fowler will be giving the staff report.
Thank you, Director Landavazo, Chairman and Commissioners. This evening, item 1 is at 210, 212 13th Street, minor use permit 18-8. It's a request to modify a minor use permit 17-3 that allowed a remodel of the interior of the primary unit. It's a duplex on a property which is non-conforming due to parking density and setbacks in the RHD 20 zoning area. It's in the Old Town area near Electric Avenue and 13th Street. We have an alley running along the south side of the property and along the rear east side of the property. The property currently contains a primary residence and a garage with a residence over the top. The previous submittal was approved on May 1st, 2017. As I explained, that one approved an interior remodel and this gable roof on this primary residence. This one is mainly looking at this area that's above the garage currently. The setbacks that are non-conforming are this one that's up in front, which is only 3'4", and with the odd configuration of this lot, we end up it becomes an average of what the setbacks are at a certain distance, and at that distance, it averages 43.51, so it's about 4 foot. 4 foot 4 inches. This one right here is right at that. The rear one is, it's 11-foot alley, so we're actually supposed to have a 13-foot setback in the back, and it's much, much less than that. So this is the configuration of the May 1st approval, which we have added all the conditions into this resolution as part of the modification. They were going to take the family room and eliminate a bedroom in here and enlarge their kitchen area, create a new, enlarge the bathroom area with a closet, and just have this living room area. They were kind of downsizing for family needs. With the new proposal, they're asking that the second unit be considered part of the first unit. So they were going to remove the kitchen so they wouldn't actually have two units. So it'd be being no longer a duplex, it would be a single-family residence with this detached 2 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms. They were eliminating their kitchen. The living area right here, or the living room that was existing, is the proposed bedroom. They are having a bigger family, so that's what this whole thing has come before you again. Let's see. And the MUP is required because of the nonconformities. At this time, we had received no correspondence from anybody regarding this property. You do have a handout that's a memorandum that's before you this evening, and it has actually 2 papers. And one of them is for this actual project, and that's the last page on here. It's part of the resolution. It's page 404. It's condition number 8. We revised the conditions in the resolution to allow that they would be eliminating one of the addresses due to the removal of the kitchen in the second unit. So we will no longer have that mix-up of the 2 addresses. With that concludes my presentation. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you, Mr. Fowler. Let's see, let's open it up for staff questions to staff. Staff questions to staff? Any questions for staff? Any commissioners, do you have something? Patty, would you like to ask?
I do. How many bedrooms, existing bedrooms, are downstairs?
Well, in the single-story residence, there's only one, and, at the beginning, there were 2, and then they were eliminating one, and then they came back and modified this approval of this MUP so that they could add a bedroom into this section of the house.
Okay, so they're going to have the master bedroom downstairs in the main building?
Correct,
Okay, and then 2 bedrooms in the other building?
correct.
And at night, you're going to go outside and go upstairs to go to your bedroom? I mean, who's planning on using the other 2 bedrooms? I guess what I'm getting at is when you take out a kitchen and you do all this rearranging, you can sell the house down the road and somebody else can take that, and re-rent it. That's my concern. Because it doesn't, no offense. Are you here? But okay, no offense. Sorry, what?
Yeah, we'll have open comment in a few minutes, Patty.
Maybe I'm missing something. But if you've got a bedroom downstairs in the main building, and then you've got 2 bedrooms you're going to use over the garage, excuse me, you're going to be walking outside to go to bed every night? To go to another building?
I think that's a question for the applicant when they come up to
Okay.
speak.
Because as I said, my concern is when you take out a kitchen, down the road, somebody can put it back rent it out and put in a little makeshift kitchen, and that changes it. And if that's something that should run with the land, that it cannot be used as a residence, a single residence.
Mr. Chair, if I may, when staff reviewed this, we did take a look at it, and essentially...
So could you please speak a little clearer?
Sure. Essentially, what we did take a look at is that by the code, it met the regulations for nonconformity because they weren't increasing the number of bedrooms, they were relocating them. In regard to the kitchen, the reason why we did put in that additional condition in there to remove the address is because, as Steve noted in his staff report, it's going from a duplex to a single family. So the classification of the occupancy for that space above the garage will no longer be a second unit that can operate as its own unit. That's how we're looking at it, and that's why we wanted to get that reflected into the resolution. If you feel that there's any additional items or safeguards that are needed, you can make a suggestion, and we can add that in there. But that was the approach, and that's why the condition was added.
Okay, because it just, no offense, but cutting through the backyard to go upstairs to go to sleep it's going to get old real quick.
I actually find it kind of interesting. This is like outdoor California living. So
I
anyways,
could
we'll...
I can understand if you got teenagers and you want them over there and
That's-
you're over there.
All
That's
right.
one thing.
Commissioner
But-
Campbell, do you want to open it up for, do we have any other questions for staff? No? I don't have any. So if we could, let's open up the floor for public comment on this item. We've just opened that. Would anyone like to come speak to this?
I have nothing prepared, but...
Okay.
Most
that's fine,
people
that's
don't
fine.
have anything prepared when they come up here.
That's great.
Okay, please introduce yourself.
My name is Jody Flint. My parents are Robert and Jeannie. This house was my grandparents' house. It's been in
Wow.
our family since 1950-something. We are, initially, my parents were planning to move into the home, which is why we converted it to the one-bedroom ground floor primary residence. The second residence over the garage had been a rental for almost 35 years and had not been touched in that whole time. The kitchen was barely functional, and the space was quite old. My family had been overseas. When my family was relocating back to the United States, we changed the plan for this property, which was for me and my children to move in. So I do have 3 kids. One is leaving for college. The other 2 are a little bit older, and we'll be using those 2 bedrooms over the garage. That's the plan. So we have done this before, and we love this arrangement. It's not a long walk. It's about 4 feet from the back door to the stairs up to the second floor over the garage. So
All right.
there you go. That's my plan. If I can answer any questions, please let me know.
Thank you, Ms. Flint. I have no questions. I like the idea of getting some fresh air on your way from the bedroom to breakfast in the morning, but do either commissioners have any questions for Ms. Flint?
Well, like I made a comment that if it's teenagers or young adults, having them over there might be the ideal way to go. But the other thing is, it's upstairs, so I doubt you're going to get older folks wanting to go upstairs, to go to sleep at night. The only other comment I would make, that even though it's been in your family for generations, the fact that you have changed it from a rental to a single family, that should be, you should put something in writing, a covenant that it runs with the land. So in other words, if you or one of your children decides to sell it, that now the use could change, and now you've got a unit that you might want to rent with no kitchen.
I totally appreciate what you're saying. That is obviously not part of our current plan, and I can't predict what my kids
Oh, no,
might
I'm just
do,
saying-
but, I think the change of the address addresses that, and that any change in the future would have to come before the council
Okay.
again for a modification of the site.
That's
Mr.
just the whole
Ch-
point.
Mr.
There
Chair,
are
if I
a lot
may-
of
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Sorry, if I may,
Or
we...
Director Landavaza, please.
We can try to add language if the applicant is okay and the commission maybe to further clarify.
You're still
Additionally,
speaking to your mic.
sure, additionally to what was identified as the proposed addition, the second address will be eliminated due to removal of the kitchen in the second unit. We can add additional language. A kitchen/cooking area cannot be added to the detached portion, and the property will be used as a single-family residence. Is that an okay compromise that clarifies?
Well,
the
actually,
use?
you can have a duplex with one address, because what, Unit A, Unit B, Unit 1, Unit 2, that type of thing. Quite frankly, if I was moving my young adult son up there, I'd want to give him a little refrigerator, a little microwave, that sort of thing. They probably would want to do that, you know? That's not a kitchen per se, but I think given the fact that you've got a large enough unit up there that you could rent, I think, we've seen this before, not this exactly, but where you put a covenant, or what is where you say that it has to run with the land. In other words, if you sell it, the fact that it's got that type of zoning, they would have to know that. Any buyer would have to know that, okay?
Okay.
Yeah.
Is there any action or any motion out of that, Patty, or just sort of some
Well,
advice?
I would move for approval with that condition. Otherwise, you could sell it to somebody and they can convert it.
Well, the permit goes with the house when it's sold, correct?
The entitlement stays on the property, it
Yeah.
stays with the land, and
Doesn't
any new
vanish.
improvements would need to conform with zoning code and building code requirements.
Okay,
And
but
the
if the
zone
land-
and density for that area doesn't allow for a second
Okay,
unit.
but if they sell it, and the new people buy it, they're not going to come to city, they could well not come to City Hall for permits for anything, which is a bootleg. Excuse me, you have any idea how many bootleg apartments we have in Old Town?
I do, I grew up in Seal Beach. I'm
Okay.
absolutely aware of the problem, and I do appreciate your
Okay.
concerns. My concern is complicating something that doesn't necessarily need to be complicated. And again, we have to expect that people would follow the rules and would come. You can't,
Yes, we'll
I
put that
don't
to
want
code
to-
enforcement. All right, is there anything else?
That was.
Do you want the language that was proposed?
What
or
is that? Yeah.
The
Into
added,
mic.
the added language would be a kitchen/cooking area cannot be added to the detached portion, and the property will be used as a single-family residence.
Okay, now, if she were to sell it, how would the new buyer know that?
They would read item 8 in the ordinance.
They're going to get the ordinance as part of the closing documents?
The entitlement stays on the property, so the owner, the new owner, at any time that they come in to propose they wanted to do anything, initially, just the zone that applies to that property would not allow for it because they can't have two units anymore. It's
Okay.
non-conforming in that regard.
My only concern is somebody coming in and bootlegging, which is a common
Would you like
issue.
the language that was proposed? Would you like the language that Director Landavaza proposed?
That sounds great if somebody comes into the city. If they don't, if she were to sell it and they
I'm
don't
not
come
asking
into
you
the...
if or anything. I'm saying to move this item along, do you want the language in the ordinance or not, Patty?
Yes.
Okay.
But I also
I'm
want,
fine with that
I want
too.
more in there.
You want more? Well, then please state it.
Okay, I'm not sure of the legal language, that's why I'm asking Amy, for it to be an item that would show up with the deed.
Trying to pull out the wire. Are you asking that one of the conditions be that the restriction on not putting a kitchen in and having this property as a whole be a single-family dwelling unit be recorded as a covenant?
Yes,
I guess that's her motion.
As a covenant?
Yes, it would, they would have to record a document subject to approval of the city that would then be recorded, so anybody buying the property would be on constructive notice.
and
So
that would have to,
is
and that would have
something
to,
that we're asking for the applicant to pay for, like an additional
Yes,
item?
it would be something that, like we have parking covenants that we typically require
I
in
don't-
certain parts
I
of the
disagree. I don't
city.
think that's necessary.
okay,
I don't think that
recording,
buys me anything.
recording fees are only like $15 down at the county recorder, $7, no biggie. But I'm just saying, record a covenant so that any future owner would know that that restriction is there.
Okay, so are you making a motion?
Yes, that we have it put in a covenant,
Okay, so
and I liked Amy's language.
Okay, so propose to force them to have a covenant of some sort?
Because you know what happens? You get somebody that comes before us and
I
says,
understand
know,
what you're saying.
I never knew
Okay.
this was
Well,
there.
there's a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second it. I'll second it.
All right, let's vote. must push the wrong one. Here we go. Okay, so we have 2 yeses and a no. So it passes. I'd like the record to reflect that I don't think any covenant is necessary.
That's
but
your
I
choice.
didn't, but we have passed that particular item.
Is it possible for me to ask for some clarification on what I'm now
You may,
required
absolutely, because
to do?
I'm confused as well as you,
I'm completely
Jody.
confused, and this seems somewhat unnecessary, given the change that we've already made to remove the address and change it to a single-family residence on the property.
It does not affect you. It affects a future owner.
All right,
I understand. I do understand the point that you have made. I really do, but I'd like to understand what my responsibilities
Okay.
are now to continue with my project.
As I understood the action, Ms. Landavazo had proposed 2 conditions, one stating that a kitchen/cooking area could not be added to the detached bedroom area, and second, that the property is no longer a duplex but will be a single-family dwelling unit containing an attached and detached building. Now, the third item would be that the property owner will be required to record a covenant in a form satisfactory to the city, indicating that this is a single-family dwelling and that no kitchen or cooking unit can be added to the detached area.
Is that a typical kind of covenant that you have to record, or would the zoning for the property normally be sufficient notice to a future purchaser that
you-
that is the kind of property they are buying?
Are we in discussion?
Come across
or-
this
I mean, do you want
often.
me to, or Crystal can answer that?
Well, at this point, the commission took a vote, and the determination was to approve this with the condition that a covenant be recorded. The process for that, the city will prepare the document, will prepare the covenant to identify these items that were identified by the commission. We will provide that to you. It would have to then be taken to the recorder's office, recorded. We'll have the address there so it can be forwarded over to us, and we can have a record that it was recorded with the county. And that way, the commission has assurances that if the property were ever to sell, there is the documentation there identifying that a kitchen area cannot be added.
Okay. I'd just like to reflect that I think that an unreasonable condition is being posed on me that has not been imposed before. There is no evidence that this has been done when someone else has converted an apartment into a non-rental. We're removing something from the market. We're reducing the amount of parking that's needed for this property. And the fact that a potential buyer at some point in the future might change what we're trying to do here, I don't think that's reasonable grounds for imposing another condition on us for the change to this property. So I realize you've already voted, and I wasn't given a chance to say anything before that vote happened. So I'd just like to register my objection to that.
All right, thank you, Ms. Flint. I don't intend on putting a kitchen in my back bathroom, or my back bedroom either of my 3-bedroom house, which doesn't happen to be detached, but
Mostly,
That
I
has since
just
passed,
want to get
so.
it done so I can move my kids in and we can move on with our life back in Seal Beach,
See-
where we're happy to be, so.
all right.
Your intentions are great. You just don't know what would happen if it's the
I-
intention
you,
of
Ms. Flint.
somebody
I understand the
else.
point. Thank you so much.
All right,
Okay.
we're going to move on to item 2. Item 2, which is, let me take a look here. Oh, gosh, I have so many. See, since you guys came in here and kind of, my book is, I just want to make sure my book is right. Okay, this is.
Chairman,
this is 301.
Chairman.
I apologize. We need to have Commissioner Gerges come back into
Oh,
the room.
let's do that. Oh,
And
there's
also, Amy, do you want to do the 10-day appeal
10-day
notification?
appeal. Yes. Oh, yeah.
There is a 10-day appeal period on this item, and the appeal period starts running tomorrow.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Grayson. Hey, Crystal. So this is okay, we're 301 8th Street. So when I put an X on this, I was totally confused. Same here, but that wasn't the way. That's why I voted against it. I thought it was.
Thing doesn't happen anyway until it's over.
All right, welcome back, Victor. We almost ran the rest of the meeting without you. Okay, so here we go. This is item 2, which is request for conditional use permit 18-5 at 301 8th Street. Director Landavazo, do we have a staff report on this item?
Yes, Steve Fowler will be giving the staff report.
All right, thank you, Crystal.
Thank you, Director Landavazo, Chairman, and Commissioners. Item 2 this evening is at 301 8th Street, conditional use permit 18-5 and variance 18-1 to allow the remodel and addition of the first floor and second floor of an existing single-family residence on a property which is non-conforming due to setbacks and actually a lot size in the residential high-density area 20 in the Old Town area. As you can see, the property is located on the corner of Electric and 8th, across the street from the Mary Wilson Library, and it's surrounded on the other ends by residential uses. As you can see from this picture, this property is not like other ones within the city, as that it does not back up to an alleyway. In Old Town, most of our properties back up to alleyways, which is why our rear yard setback typically says that it's 24 feet minus the alley. So as you can see here, this is not a typical lot in the Old Town area. Typically, our lots are 25, 37.5, or 50 by 100, 110, or 117 deep. This one is actually a little over 54 along the front, here along Electric, 63 along the side yard, 52 something along the rear, and then 47.5 along this property. If we were to actually go through and put all of the setbacks that are required for this property, you would start out with approximately 11 feet of buildable area on this side and come out to about 27, 37 feet on this side. And the ground floor would be about a little under 1,000 square feet. Currently, right now, the property is non-conforming, one, due to the lot dimensions, but due to the setbacks. The setbacks currently, we have a front setback that actually encroaches into the front yard setback with the garage and the kitchen area right here. And the minimum setback on the front yard is 6 feet with a 12-foot average. Along this side, because we're right about 54, the required setback is 5 foot 4 inches. We have 3 foot 11 along this area right here, that cuts along this garage area, but then shoots back to over the 5 foot 4 area. Their addition that they're proposing does start at the 5 foot 4 area. Along the rear yard, they are requesting a variance because of that lack of an alleyway to only be 9 feet, which is most of the setbacks within our Old Town area, because most of our alleyways are 15 feet wide. So minus the 24 minus the 15 typically is 9 feet. As we saw with the last project, that one was only 11 feet. Some of them are 12 feet, but typically about 75% of them are 15 feet deep. Excuse me. Along 8th Street here, it's required to be 7 foot 11 inches, and they will be meeting that required setback here. Because we are encroaching in this area right here, the applicant has proposed to reduce our the setback so that this does meet the required setbacks in the front. So they're cutting off a small portion of the kitchen here to meet the minimum setback of 6 feet, and a portion of the garage here to meet the 6 feet, with keeping the depth of 18 feet so that it meets the requirements of the interior of the garage. So this is our existing first floor site plan. or floor plan. We've got the kitchen here, powder room here, living room here, and the master bedroom here with the two-car garage. As you can see, the two-car garage moves back a small portion so that it meets that 18 feet. We have a closet and the bathroom back here, a closet with the master bedroom in the back. This is part of the first floor addition to this property. The powder room moves from this area here to over here, with the living area still remaining here and extending the size of the kitchen. On our second floor, we currently have a deck area right here with a bedroom and a bath in this area. The applicant is proposing to move the deck more over the garage area and move the second bedroom over into this area with the bathroom over in this area. Thus, in the area where the bathroom and the bedroom are currently, there's a loft, a study, or exercise room, an open area for them to be able to enjoy up in this area. As you can see on the elevations, currently we have a stucco building here. They are going to change the exterior, make it a board and bat exterior with this change, and they are going to carry that all the way around to keep with a more, with a different type of beachy theme than that's currently located out there. We have not received any correspondence regarding this project. And with that, that concludes my presentation. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you, Steve. Do we have questions for staff? Any commissioners? Commissioner Gerges?
How wide are the garages?
They are over 18 feet wide, and I know this one's right here stops at 18 feet deep. It goes further because they wanted some extra storage area. Let me see here if I got it on here. Steve, do you know off the top of your head? I know when we initially looked, it was over the 18-foot wide. Our more concern was over the depth because we were reducing the depth. Didn't bring that full set. Sorry about that.
What do we have here?
I don't have the full set with me.
Wish I had my scale. Here's the demolition plan. Here we go. Oh, this is existing. But they don't change the width. Is this one too? Which one's the width? I can't really tell. 18 feet 9 inches? Yeah. It's either 18 feet 9 inches or 19 feet 2 inches, one or the other.
I'm sorry, say again?
It's either 18.9 or 19.2. It's pretty much square.
And that's existing, right? That footprint is existing, that building it currently exists, as I understand it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, there's some very minor modifications to the,
So this currently is the current configuration right here of this garage. So as you can see right here, this is where they're going to remove this portion, and it's just going to push back into this area.
all right. Do we have other questions for staff? Because, no, yes? Do you want to save until after we talk to the,
I have a concern with the variance taking up so much going from 24 to 9, that's not a little change, that's a big change. And yes, most houses have, are on alleys, but they also are 100 feet deep. This is not. And so you lose it there. And are you the owners?
Mr. Chair?
Yeah, let me, hold
Oh,
on.
I know, but I'm just saying.
No, if I may, right now, it's the time for questions for staff, and then we can call the
Yeah, we'll go
applicant for
to the-
questions, and
Right.
then the discussion can happen after.
I just want to make a comment. I've been inside that house many years ago, many years ago, and it was weird, and it was tiny, and I thought, and I can't blame them for wanting to, enlarge it, but I got a concern about the variances, and
Right now, that's more appropriate.
Okay.
for
Yeah,
discussion.
Okay.
right now it's questions for staff.
okay,
And you can ask staff if they think
I
it's
mean,
weird, but other than that, we're
okay.
going to
I
open it.
have concerns why some of this is worded, but I'll address that later. Okay.
Very good. Thank you, Patty. Okay, I'm going to open up the, open up the DS for public comment. Would anyone like to speak to this particular item? Is the applicant here? Would you like to step forward?
Hello, I'm not prepared either. This is kind of a new thing for me. My name is Kim Whaley. My husband and I bought this house in 2005. We did some cleanup. It had been a rental for many years. So we did initially some cleanup inside, interior. It was all permitted. I know you know that, Steve. And just cleaned up. Now that we're getting on our full retirement age, we want to be here more. My daughter just got engaged, and there is no room for any grandbabies that I hope to have. So that's the reason for upstairs. You mentioned, Ms. Campbell, that you had been in there. It is a very teeny tiny house.
It's
We
when I
opened it up as much interior as we can, and we were just beating ourselves against the wall. But Steve has come up with some changes that will give us a little bit more room and make it a little more conducive for a better lifestyle that we hope to retire here. So I appreciate your consideration. It is a very weird lot. It looks like our lot was part of the other existing lot back in some day that went all the way to the alley. Now it's not, and we're just making it, we're not going big up, we're not big box people, we're trying to make it as nice as the city and as our part, and continue to live in Seal Beach, love living in Seal Beach.
Well, I share that sentiment. Thank you, Ms. Whaley. Did I say that right?
Yes, you
Oh,
did.
okay, very good. If you don't mind staying for just a second, do we have any questions for the applicant? Any commissioners?
It's not somewhat, I have a concern. I have concerns, okay?
That's it. That's for deliberation and discussion.
Okay,
All right.
So if you
okay.
have questions.
Do you have questions for Ms. Whaley?
No, I can see very
Does the
clearly
other
what she
commissioners have
wants to do, and I don't blame her one bit for doing it.
Thank you.
All right, you can have a seat if we
Thank
need anything.
thank
We
you
may
for your
ask you to
time.
come back. Thank you. Does anyone else have any comments to this particular item on the agenda?
I'm Steve Sunikoff, I'm the architect on the project, and I just wanted to address one thing. You stated that you were concerned about going from 24 feet to 9 feet for setback. The house is never 24 feet. Is that the
This is the-
existing setback in the
That's what's
rear?
in that's what's in the staff report.
Why don't you
This,
clarify with Steve?
this is the second floor setback currently right here. I believe this is the 24-foot line, and the existing house is at 13, I believe.
Okay.
And the first floor will be at 9 feet, the second floor will be at 13 feet, because if you look at the rear elevation, it does step back right here. This section of the home sets back further than the first floor.
So if you could go back to that, just so I can clarify, can you go back to the previous slide? So the single hatched area is the added square footage on the first floor.
Correct.
Correct,
And the double hatched area is the added square footage on the second floor.
correct.
Okay, thank you. Okay, very good. Does anyone have do you have anything else you want to say, Mr. Senecoff? Thank you.
No, I just wanted to clarify that.
Okay, good, thank you.
May
Do
I
we have
ask-
any questions for
Yeah,
Mr.
I
Senecoff?
do have a question.
Commissioner Gerges?
Yeah, with respect to the side yard setback on the, I guess it would be the eastern side of the property, the garage widths were not sufficient enough to allow you to straighten out that wall and bring that wall in a little bit so that you conform with the new wall rather than having it jog out like that? I know it's an existing footprint, I get that, and I'm all about, the problems we're having with setback intrusions, because I've run into the same problem myself, which forced me to change my plans completely. But bottom line is that, aren't the garages wide enough to be able to accommodate that or not?
I believe if we move that wall down to comply, that the garage width would be substandard.
I get it,
Car will fit in.
but
Yeah, that would reduce it by almost a foot and a half.
and again, what were the widths, one more time?
It was
18.9.
18.9 or 19.2, so even if at the most gracious number that we have on there, it would be about 3 inches short.
Okay. Any other questions for the architect? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, anyone else want to comment on this item? Okay, I'm going to close the open comment period. Now is the time where we can opine on the project. So would any commissioners like to make any comments?
I have a concern about the,
Commissioner Campbell?
okay, I have a concern about the variance for the setbacks. I understand they are not backed up against an alley, but on the other side of the coin, those that are usually are on lots that are 100 feet deep. One of the things that was said to me many years ago, when I was first here in 93 to 96, we had a planning commissioner from the Hill, Dr. Tony Dahlman. And we were always getting people coming in, they wanted variance here, move this, move that. And he said to me, if we're not careful, Old Town is going to become one big box. And with that in mind, I have always been very cautious when looking at requests for altering setbacks. Now, the other thing I will say, as I said earlier, I've been inside that house. I saw it probably before you bought it, okay? Because I was in it at least 20 years ago. And it had a very unusual configuration. Who knows why people buy different pieces of property, the size of their families. That house is limited because of the size of the lot. It really is. And I'm not trying to be curt or anything, but when you say here, the strict application of the city's setback requirements would create an undue hardship because of the lot's unique size and shape. The required setbacks and distance requirements would deny the applicant the ability to enjoy the same privileges as other properties within the same vicinity and residential zone. Well, I'm not trying to be a smart or curt, but no offense, if you wanted to enjoy all those, you should have bought a bigger house. And on the other side of the coin, how does one necessarily afford that? When I saw that house, my comment, when I saw it, you have done a lot of work to it. That is obvious, just from driving by, okay? But when I was in it, that's a size house that obviously somebody, not a large family, is going to work out. And, we'd all like certain things. Well, if that's the case, then you're going to have to go get them. So I object to that as that sentence, okay?
Okay, that's very good. Do you have any questions for staff about that? Now, and if I may, I too understand, whenever I see the word variance, I get a little bit nervous. It sounds like planning staff worked with the architect to kind of come up with a setback that is consistent with the rest, the expectation of the rest of the community. Is that a true statement?
That would be correct. So just for the commission's understanding, there are And believe me, just in my career, I tend to get hesitant when I hear the word variance across the counter as well, because a lot of people hear the word and don't fully understand all of the legal requirements behind it. So for a variance, there has to be a legal basis for it. Usually it's size, shape, or topography as to why a variance can be supported. In this regard, we have size and shape. Those are primarily the issues that we have here. It's not the same size or shape. The configuration is very different from what you traditionally see in Old Town, which is the narrower rectangular lots, which is why when this came across, we did notice that it did have a unique condition to the lot itself. And we did work with the architect and the applicant to try to find something that we felt was something that we would be able to support and make a recommendation to the Planning Commission. Of course, it is the Planning Commission's decision, but with our expertise, we believe this is something that we felt comfortable in recommending approval for. Again, as Mr. Fowler identified, most of the lots in Old Town have about a 9-foot setback from their rear property line because our code requires 24 feet minus the width of the alley. This property doesn't have an alley behind it, so it would have been 24 feet removed from the rear and then 12 feet removed from the front for, I believe it's about a 50 or 60-foot wide lot that doesn't leave much of a buildable area for the property. And that, at the very least, just for the commission's understanding, that's where staff's review and staff's work with the architect came from.
All right, thank you, Crystal, we appreciate that. Does anyone have any other comments?
Just along the same lines as Patty's comments, and don't get me wrong, I mean, I'm all for improving properties to look better and to be more efficient and so on. At one time, the mentality here was basically to allow essentially the legal non-conforming properties to expand one time. And under the previous, many years ago codes, it was a limited amount of space that could be added to those kind of properties, beyond which no more could be added, right? Is there a maximum square footage that can be put on this property, or are we looking at 5 or 10 years down the road, whether it's them or a successor owner, coming back and saying, well, I want another 200 square feet or 300 square feet added to the second story?
So right now, the way that our codes apply to non-conforming properties, the stricter requirements are for properties that are non-conforming due to density. So those ones have a much tighter restriction, and there is limitation on how much percentage can be altered. For a non-conformity due to single family, we don't have a limitation on overall how much improvement can be done to that property. But it does require discretion of the Planning Commission. Every change would have to be presented to the Planning Commission for review.
I mean, from Patty's perspective, this one looks great. I love the architecture. I think it's a vast improvement. There's no question about it. But what prevents it from ending up being a box down the road? I mean, it literally could go that direction if you waited long enough, right? Okay, so and this is an unusual situation, because I have to admit, most residential dwellings in Seal Beach are boxes now. They're rectangles, actually, but with very few exceptions, you know, I mean, architectural relief is hard to come by. But in this case, where does it go from here?
All right, thank you, Commissioner Gerges. I think it's a real nice remodel, and I think it's pretty sensible. I move to approve.
I'll second.
Please vote.
Could you call for the question?
Do I need to call for question?
What was the
The
motion?
motion was made.
Motion was to approve.
What
Yeah,
was
I
the
just
motion?
moved to approve what was
To
presented.
approve what's in front of us?
Correct, yeah, I do. Okay, please vote.
I voted no.
They don't light up anymore, you know.
Okay.
All voted? No? Well, it's 2 up, 2 down. So do we have another motion? Or what do we do, or do we move on?
It's up to what?
I'd like to see you rework our plans.
No, open comment is closed.
It's, if somebody else wants to make another motion.
See you rework our plans.
May I just add a comment? I know you're in
Yes.
deliberation.
Yes. Ms. Grace?
The issue before you, and it's within your discretion based on your ability or inability to make the findings, this is a non-conforming property. So they will be required, as they have with this application, to come back to the city if they want to do anything else. So the issue before you is this application.
Understand.
And the legalities of a variance are you look at this application. It's not an issue of precedent or what might happen in the future. It's just this application and what are the reasons. Staff has made recommendations. You may agree or disagree.
See, I have a problem with the variance.
Your proposal would be to what, make it a CUP? or
Well, I
something?
tell you what, if there's no other motion
Hang
on
on,
the...
no,
the
hang
floor-
on. Just give us a second.
Okay, let's not have discussion.
we need to
like,
discuss this
we need to
openly.
discuss out loud.
If you want.
Can you please speak into the microphone?
Okay, again, I don't want the property owner to get me wrong, okay? This is a vast improvement, I'm sure, over what they currently have. And I understand the principle of not worrying about it down the road, but I am worried about it down the road, okay? Because in this town, everything is incremental. It always ends up being, oh, don't worry about it now, we'll worry about it later. And then later comes along, and the next thing you know, they're asking for a variance and putting another 200 square feet on top of it, and essentially compounding the density problem. And again, I get it. I mean, I totally get it, okay? You know, I mean, you try to squeeze out every square foot you can here because it's expensive and you want it for, you know, for better living accommodations. So, I mean,
Are you talking yourself out of your vote?
no, I
Director?
may very well change my mind. Don't get me wrong, but I think it's an issue that needs to be considered because it was considered at one time and sort of, I get it, it's the non-conforming due to density, but I mean, this is basically density we're talking about here. And there's no other way to look at it. You know, there's a limit to which you can do maximum development on most lots, okay? I know what mine is, okay, on the property that I own. Here, it's uncertain, because it could just keep going. At some point in time.
Could I ask a question of staff, Steve? So if the variance lies in the north margin of the building, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so in order to comply, so the house is already is non-conforming, right? It's where, it's the white area on
Correct.
on the drawing? So they already don't comply. It's the, what's the dimension that is supposed to be met? Is that what's shown on there?
24 feet.
It's
So
20
so if the buildable area, if they were to meet all of the required setbacks for this property, is this dashed area right in this area?
So it's that trapezoid.
Right.
So-
And currently, right now, their lot coverage is 47%. With the addition, it's 52%. They're allowed 75% in this particular area. Any additional square footage to bring this out to be a box would be required to go through another conditional use permit, which would be required to come here before this commission to be approved.
Yeah, personally, I don't consider this to be mansionization of Seal Beach.
Okay,
And
let
and
me ask-
I understand what you're saying. The only point I would make is it seems to me, and I'm going to be very clear here, I think planning staff worked hard with the architect and with the applicant to come up with a reasonable approach. And just because it's a variance doesn't mean it's wrong. It actually meets the legal requirement, which there is one. So if you just don't want, if you're against remodeling for the sake of possible future mansionization, fine, then keep your vote the way it is. But if it's not, then you're going to change your vote. I mean, I don't know what to say. I mean, I think this is reasonable and sensible, and that's my position. I've already made my motion, so I won't make it again.
Okay, how close will this be to the next-door neighbor's house?
With this approval, it would be 9 feet away from here and then the additional 3 feet. If this were a traditional lot, this probably would be only about 4 feet away, for about maybe
No,
5
you'd have
feet.
4 feet. You'd have at least 4 to 5 feet on each side. So you would have probably at least 10.
So this one is double.
I just got a problem with that variance. Because, you see, normally you'd have a lot that's 100 feet long, so you'd have the setback, because for the alley wouldn't be a problem. But this doesn't have an alley, so that's probably why the setback was short to begin with.
Well, let me think here for a second. Let me ask another question. Oh, are there, just for staff, refresh my memory, are there any two-story houses around this property, or are they all single stories?
Steve, can you go to the aerial that you?
The one next to it is a two-story.
Okay,
They're on the corner.
okay, thank you. I had forgotten, yeah. I'm familiar with the property, but I had forgotten which one was a two-story, right? The one directly behind is still single-story, or is it one or two stories?
Yeah, it's a single-story duplex.
Yeah.
Well, it's a duplex.
Yeah, okay. Okay. Well, okay, I mean, I'm willing to support this project, but I am expressing my concerns right up front about where this could be headed. And this is not the only reverse lot that we're dealing with in town. There's other reverse lots here too, which I can see them going straight up, okay? And quite frankly, they may not be as gracious about setbacks and about architectural, relief, because they're going to want to maximize the square footage. And so, to me, it's an eyesore sometimes on the neighborhood. I mean, I can point to one right down the street from me that could be a two-story straight-up box if they really wanted to go that direction. So,
And they'll have to come to us if they want to.
understood. But I'm just expressing my concern that this should be something that the Planning Commission in the future and City Council, if it takes a zoning change of some kind, should be addressing. Because in my time, that's the first thing we were concerned about, was essentially forever incorporating this change and never being able to go back and do anything about it later.
And Victor, you've been here for
40
how many
years.
years? So you've seen all these changes,
Totally.
and so I very, very much respect
Right.
that.
If we
So-
reject it, they can go to the planning, they can go to city council.
I think what I'll do is I'll give one chance. Does anyone want to make a
I think
motion
it's
at
not
this
worth it.
point?
I think we
Otherwise,
just
I'm
gotta
going
go
to
ahead
move
and
on.
approve it, yeah. Get it over with.
You can have a different motion, you can, if you want to do a motion to reconsider, it should be made by one of the votes that was against,
A motion to
well, you
reconsider.
don't really have a
Do we one?
prevailing side
Yeah, but let me
here.
just say this, I would, having sat on the city council, I know that you could take this to city council if we were to reject it for appeal.
Right.
I hate throwing that in the lap of city council. It's not really something that I want to put you as a property owner through. I understand what it's like to go through these processes, believe me, okay? I mean, it's not easy, it's not fun, sometimes it's a total pain. Notwithstanding how great staff is, don't get me wrong, staff is great. But, I will support this project, on that basis, basically. I know that maybe the opinion is not shared by Patty, and I respect her opinion, believe me, she's been through it too, she knows what's going on here. But again, my concerns are addressed to staff, and, this is something that I think ought to be on your list of things to do down the road, because I can see it being a problem again down the road somewhere. So I would make a motion to reconsider.
Motion to reconsider.
I'll second that.
Okay. So we are voting a second time to
Just to reconsider, and then you'll vote.
oh, we're voting to reconsider, which means to revote.
Yes.
So we're voting to revote, was first and seconded, so everyone please vote. Okay, we have 3 yeas, 1 nay.
Now we have to vote on that.
And now you need your motion.
Okay, so I will repeat my motion to approve conditional use permit 18-6 at, oh no, I'm sorry, I've already moved ahead to 3. Wait, let me get this right, I'm sorry. I apologize. To move to approve conditional use permit 18-5 and variance VAR 18-1 in accordance with staff report and ordinance. So I move to approve that.
I'll second again.
Okay, please vote, everyone. And it passes 3-1. All right, thank you, everyone.
Thank
Very good. Yeah, thank you very much. And wait, we do have,
Yes, there is a 10-day appeal period on this action, and the appeal period starts running tomorrow.
all right, outstanding. Thank you,
Can
Kim.
I
And we
ask
wish
one
you
other
all the
question?
best.
Where's the kitchen in this thing?
Okay, very good. Okay, moving on to item number
And this you're talking
3.
about?
The one we just went through.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Okay. Item number 3 is, let's see, request for CUP 18-6 to replace a commercial nonconforming use with a residential nonconforming use that is more conforming to the general plan and zoning ordinance than previous use. 17C Pacific Avenue, this is over in Surfside. And staff, do we have a report on this item? I'm sorry, Director Landavazo, do we have a report?
Yes, Steve Fowler will be presenting on this item.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Director and Chairman and Commissioners. Yes, item 3 is at 17C. And as the Chairman stated, it's for a remodel of the interior and exterior of the modifications to an existing commercial and residential building on a property that's non-conforming due to parking density, setbacks, and land use in the residential low-density zoning area within the Surfside Colony. The site location is right as you come in off of Phillip Street. It's right off to the west. It's a square lot, 50 by 50, that's surrounded by residential uses to the west and to the south, the post office to the east, and parking areas and the front gate to the north. As you can see, the site is almost identical, exactly a square. It's 50 by a little over 50 square. The setbacks for this are as follows. With this being Pacific, this would be the front setback. This is the side yard setback, which is required to be 5 feet on both sides because it's 10% of the lot width. This is 5'11", but does have an encroachment of the stairs to the second floor. This rear one is 3 feet, is required to be 3 feet. It's 4 feet, but it also has an encroachment of stairs. This one is 5 feet, is required to be 5 feet, but it's actually only 2 feet, and this one's built right up near the property line. The current, with the current configuration of this of being a fourplex on the second floor and a commercial unit on the bottom floor, it's currently required to have 13 parking spaces, and it has 10 that's allocated, or actually I take that back, it's 12 allocated for it. With a new configuration, which I'll show you in a moment, it will be required to have 10 if approved. So this is the second floor. These are the 4 units that are on the second floor. The existing first floor had a vacant area, and this was derived from a site plan that we had from 1977 when it was last remodeled. It had a vacant area, a kitchen, an office work area, or office area, and a work area up here in the front. So it was one continuous unit. What they're proposing is to keep it one continuous unit, but since a commercial use is no longer an allowed use within the RLD 9 area, they asked to make this a residential unit. So we would have 2 bedrooms, a den, a full kitchen here, dining, living, and family room area, and the owner wanted an office area for him to, if you went by the property, it from a sliding glass door to a window and a door. There'll be wainscoting put on here. There is a window added in this area, as you can see right here, and a window change out in this area. The exterior modifications are not that big, but the wainscoting will give it a nicer appearance as you drive into the area. Now, as I explained to you earlier, we do have a correspondence that was received for this project, and it was in opposition. You do have that before you. Staff has taken a look at this, and it's talking about the parking is very limited. We did put a condition in there that they record a covenant requiring that there be 10 spaces guaranteed for this particular use in the parking area. And when we took a look at this, we felt that the residential use, changing it from a commercial use to a residential use, realistically would be a less intensive use than the commercial use that would be required to be put in there if it were to stay the same way as an office area. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
All right, thank you, Steve. I got a few questions. So you talk about the covenant that's associated with the parking. Does that mean that there's going to be parking spots that are labeled for this particular unit only? Or how does that work?
Yes, there should be assigned parking for this particular unit.
There should be, or there will be as prescribed?
Well, there will be with the required covenant.
With the required covenant. So that'll be in the, is that stated as such in the ordinance that there will be spaces marked?
We can amend that condition to require that, but as part of their site plan, we will take a look at that to assure.
Condition 4 deals with the covenant, so you could add language to that, or
Correct.
So
10 assigned parking spaces, basically.
provide a recorded covenant to the planning department indicating 10 parking spaces have been allocated for residential uses established at 17C Parking Avenue. But that doesn't say that it has to be marked as such on the floor.
No, that's what I'm saying, is you could put.
Well, I don't know that I want to necessarily do that. I was just asking the question, so hold off on that, please. But I was curious. If I could also ask, so you're saying commercial, this area can no longer be used for commercial purposes, or it's been grandfathered in as commercial use?
The existing nonconformity, what our records show is that space is a commercial space currently. So if somebody wanted to come in and put a commercial space in there, they could, because that's the last use that's been approved on record. The request now is to convert it to a residential use. And again, it's still non-conforming, but it's more conforming because the general plan and zoning designate that area as residential.
Okay, and then it would never be able to, thinking towards the future, it would never be able to switch back?
It would not.
It would not, okay. Very good. Was there any kind of, do you do any kind of impact analysis comparing like commercial use to residential use for this area? I mean, is it just parking is pretty much the standard for that? Is that about all we look at?
Primarily, we were looking at what the designation is for it. So what our general requirements are is to try to bring as much as we can into conformity with our current general plan and zoning code. So that's one of the things that we were trying to take a look at. If the nonconformity were to remain, we can't go in and try to remove it if they're currently utilizing it. But the request was actually for a more intense use, and again, working with the applicant, this is the best thing that we were going to be able to present to the Planning Commission with any type of recommendation from staff.
Okay, very good. Okay, do we have other questions, please?
Yes, I suppose the city attorney, I'm going to direct the city, refresh my memory. It's been a while since I've taken real estate law, okay, but covenants run with title, and how can they be extinguished?
You would have to release it. You'd have to record another document.
So both parties would have to agree, but it can be released, is the point?
Yes.
Correct? So it's not a permanent
That is in
condition,
perpetuity.
right? Exactly.
It's there until such time as the parties release it. And in this case, if they removed it. I mean, you could also put in without city, it couldn't be done without city approval. They'd be in violation of the conditions unless they were able to come up with another location for the parking.
Okay. And then along those same lines, okay, there was some mention about in the letter that we received from the Surfside resident that there was an issue relative to permits for the previous residential component of the project. Does staff have any records of permits that may or may not have been issued for the residential component or not?
Mr. Fowler can correct me if I missed something. My understanding of this project was that permits were initially issued for improvements to the unit itself. Once that work got started, it went beyond the scope that was permitted, so the building inspector issued a stop work. And at that point, the applicant came in and started working with staff to correct and find a scope that they could ask for approval for.
Okay. I get the notion, just for the sake of the record, I get the notion that this is not a viable commercial property. There's no question about it. It's on the wrong side of the gate to begin with. So, but I do have concerns about the covenant, the use of the term covenant, because if we're going to make this a permanent solution, then in my mind, there ought to be some method for ensuring that the covenant stays in place beyond just 2 weeks from now they decide, hey, we're going to release the covenant, and away we go. So whether the city has the right to approve or to intervene or to be a part of that process is fine with me. But, I just don't want this looking like it's some easy methodology that can be totally done away with once we turn our heads a different direction. And I hate to say it because I love Surfside, don't get me wrong. They were great supporters of mine when I was on the city council, so I'm not trying to hold back, but I am, in all fairness, at least cognizant enough to know that a covenant is not a covenant if both parties decide to do away with it. So,
Well, cities frequently require
Sure.
covenants, and you can write the condition to require has to be recorded and cannot be modified or removed without city approval.
okay.
So we'll modify condition number 4 to identify that the covenant shall identify the city approval as required before removal.
It's fine with me.
Okay, Patty?
How many square feet is this building total? You got 2 floors.
We could ask staff. I think I'll say it on the first sheet here.
It's right around 4,000 square
4,000
feet.
square feet.
That's both floors.
Both floors together? Both floors together, it's 4,000, okay. Now, this existing building had 4 units on the top floor and the commercial downstairs. And now it's going to all be combined to one single-family residence?
No, it'll
That's what
have,
I'm missing something here.
it will remain the 4 units on the second floor and an additional unit on the
Oh,
first.
okay. That's why they need they need just 10 units. I'm looking and they got to cross this out and cross that out. Okay, so, no, that's good.
All right, do we have any more questions for staff? Okay, with that, we'll open this item for public comment. The DS is open. Please, if you have anything to state, please come forward.
My name is Richard Pearson, and I would be willing to answer any questions that you do have.
Richard, how are you associated with this project?
I am the manager for Surfside Rentals, which is the owner of the property.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry, your last name?
Pearson,
Pearson, thank you.
P-E-A-R-S-O-N.
Sorry about that. Okay. Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Pearson? I have one question. There's 3 doors on one side of the house, or one side of the first floor. Why is that?
Basically, because there were 3 there for the commercial use, and so we're just taking the the one slider and
Oh,
making that into a
oh,
door.
I see. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I was having a hard time. It's the same as the top, and
Right.
you just turned a slider into a door. Very good.
Exactly.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions?
I guess, thank you.
Go ahead, Victor.
I guess the conditions that are being suggested here about the covenant and the designated parking are acceptable to you?
Yes.
Okay.
All right, we have no other comments. We're going to close the comment period. Thank you, Mr. Pearson. Okay, so any comments, anything to add?
Well, I'm ready to move it, provided that the designated parking and the covenant requiring city approval is added to the conditions.
Is that enough direction for you guys to be able to write that?
Yes.
Okay, very good.
Okay, so I'll make a motion with those two items included.
No problem, good.
So that's my motion. We need a second.
Second.
Second? All right,
I'll
we have a
second.
second. Commissioner Campbell, please vote. And that one passes unanimously. Very good. Good luck with your nice first floor living space. It's an awesome area. Ms. Grayson? Oh, for everyone who's left.
There's a 10-day appeal period on this item, and the appeal period starts running tomorrow.
All right.
My non-existent.
Thank you very much, Amy. Okay, moving back to our agenda. Do we have a director's report?
No items, but I'm available for any questions.
Okay, well then, we'll just move that to commission concerns. Does anyone have any questions? Please, Commissioner Campbell.
I want to take advantage of this time. My next-door neighbor, who I've known forever, turned 100 years old today, okay? And so, Mary, I told you to watch the meeting tonight. Happy birthday. Yesterday, her family had a reception for her. They had, it's like 28 people, and I was out front, and I said, okay, all the family members get in. They said, we're all family members. But it was wonderful. I've lived next to her forever. She is a dear, and she's as smart as a whip, and I could tell you stories about her tonight, but I won't. She's just one fantastic lady. She really is. Happy birthday, Mary.
Is today her birthday?
Today's her birthday.
Can we have a motion to wish her happy birthday? On permanent record? Happy birthday, Mary. All right, very good. Does anyone else have any concerns?
I just,
Where Marie Callender's used to be, we changes in the center.
okay, thank you.
Okay, anyone else? All right, meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.